society and choosing villains, I suppose, well, it's been a while since we talked about a DarkMatter video on the channel, but if I were to take a guess, and I'm going to take a little bit of a guess based off of the description, I'm going to assume what DarkMatter is more than likely going to go into here is the sort of, maybe not like byproducts, but sort of the issues with concentrated wealth. I'm trying to remember, what was the last video we talked about dark matter in? I think he was more so adopting like a lot more anti sort of billionaire sort of sentiments, beginning to sort of get more of a class conscious sort of position where a recognition of the current society that we live under is fundamentally unstable, right? People are so ridiculously desperate and are in such desperate, dire straits to find some form of a solution to the problems that they are currently faced with that, well, when faced with such desperate sort of, well, problems, I guess, for lack of a better term, with like material conditions being as terrible as they are right now, it makes it just that people are going to be more and more, I would say, like, ridiculously desperate to find some form of way out, let's just say. Some form or way to be able to, I guess, for lack of a better term, fix the current, like, desperate, dire straits that they find themselves under, right? And as a result of people's material conditions, broadly speaking, not being addressed, a lot of people will start to point fingers, generally speaking. And this can very much so be taken advantage of by a lot of, well, far-right figures especially, and a lot of dishonest actors, generally speaking, right? People like Trump scapegoat pretty much, I think, explicitly as his main strategy of political engagement, I guess, for lack of a better term. The MAGA movement is one that is, broadly speaking, built on people being scapegoated and blamed for, well, honestly, a lot of the problems that Trump himself has helped to cause. We've taken a look at the video by Eve. I'm just going to call her Evie. Obviously, it's like Evie Production News 100 something. I don't remember exactly. Channel 100 News with Evie. I don't remember the fucking name. I'm really bad with names. And she talked about why do Trump supporters vote for Trump. And a lot of it is because they feel emasculated because of the fact that their jobs have all been shipped overseas, and a lot of it is because they are just fucking racist, right? It's more complicated. People are in such desperate, dire straits that they want to start pointing fingers at, well, anyone else besides, well, all of the billionaires who basically have control over the aspects of their lives, right? Like that are funneling so much wealth and power into their own hands, in the hands of a fewer subset of people, to the degree where it is just causing general instability in the entirety of the fabric of society. Like, I mean, people are starting to say, and correctly, I would say, that billionaires are national security threats. And I do agree with the sentiment that billionaires are definitely national fucking security threats. Like, the fact that these dudes with so much fucking wealth and power can, like, rival nation states and are able to basically bring countries to their knees, well, that's a bit of a problem. A bit of a really big problem. And it is something, broadly speaking, that should be, you know, dealt with. Like, I mean, the fact that, like, I guess wealth taxes are now, like, foreign policy, I guess, for lack of a better term, is, like, genuinely insane, but it pretty much says, like, how sort of desperate the sort of, I guess, position that we find ourselves under now, where, like, people are just going to take, you know, advantage of the desperate straits that people are feeling because of the fact that, well, people are just not, broadly speaking, having any form of relief from their, I guess, like, general sort of predispositions and class distinctions in their lives. Because, well, there's just a very small minority of people who want to have all of the money for themselves, and they will do literally anything possible to have all of the money for themselves. And, look at the fucking billionaires. I'm rambling here a little bit. Why don't we get into the actual video itself, which I assume is probably going to be mostly talking about scapegoating. Thank you, YouTube.
Does art imitate life? Mimesis. Or does life imitate art? Anti-mimesis. Well, obviously both happen, but one happens more than the other. In a capitalist society, I believe it's mimesis. Art imitates life. That's because relatable art sells. So the art that's going to become profitable is the art that's going to resonate with people. And that which is profitable is emulated and thus becomes more common. So,
True.
What we see in our art is a reflection of our society. Now, I want you to think of all the popular literature, movies, shows, video games, etc. that glorify the villain. Focus upon the villain. Make the villain...
Focus upon the villain. Video games have, generally speaking, focus upon the villain. God, I'm trying to think of some good examples of that. I mean, okay, I'm trying to think, like, do we want to go, like, technical about it, technically speaking? I was going to say, like, Call of Duty, because it has, like, military propaganda for the United States of America, but that's not exactly the correct way to engage with this question. I was also going to say Warhammer 40k, but that's like, actually, technically, everybody is the bad guy in 40k, so that's not exactly it either. Is there a lot of video games that focus on the fucking bad guys? I don't really think so. Are there video games where they let you just play as the bad guys? I mean, there definitely is. I'm just not fucking thinking of any right now.
The protagonist empathize with the villain, or make the villain a far more interesting character. Think of how much our media gives the protagonist traits that would be more fitting of an antagonist, and then ask yourself what that says about us.
So, yeah, like, well, the Warhammer 40k games. That's, like, perfect right there, then. Like, any game that has a Warhammer property in it is pretty much perfect to that to the T. Like, what, like, Vermintide, Victor Saltspire, right? Very, very pious, religious zealot. He's a witch hunter. All right, blessed Sigma, right? Like, religious zealotry, broadly speaking, is frowned upon in a lot of fucking games. Oh, I just thought of one. Halo 2. Holy shit! How did I not fucking think of Halo 2? Where you play as the Arbiter. Holy shit! That just fucking came to me, like, immediately. Yeah, Halo 2. The Covenant are obvious antagonists within Halo 2. Obviously, there's missions where you play as the Arbiter, where you play as the antagonist, and then you see the entirety of the Schism, and then, like, all of a sudden, I guess, like, the Arbiter becomes kind of a good guy, yada yada. Yeah, it's a little ridiculously simplified. That's more so to go into a lesson talking about, hey, religious fanaticism is actually kind of bad guys, but that's a completely different story. I was thinking of video games. I was not thinking of movies, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but these are a lot of good examples.
My dad loved horror movies. The scarier, the better. And of course, I like them now, but as a kid, they were too scary for me. When I was 16 years old, however, we finally saw a movie together that did not scare me at all, but it deeply scared my father. So much so that even though he liked the movie, he still refused to ever watch it again. And that was very strange, because it wasn't even a horror movie. But his fear makes sense once you hear why. Let me explain. You see, My dad was both tall and big. When I was a kid, I saw him get violent with other men on a few occasions. And each time, he physically dominated them. It was very one-sided. He could be pretty scary when he wanted to be. I loved my dad very much, but when he was the age I am now, he had a really bad temper, way worse than mine. He was a good man, but his bad temper was one of his main faults. We used to go to the movies together every weekend. Back then, a movie ticket was only about $4. And one weekend, in February of 19...
Holy shit, bro. $4 fucking movie tickets, bro. That's a You want to swallow a fucking black pill? That's a fucking black pill to swallow right there. Jesus Christ. Movie tickets used to be $4 fucking dollars, bro. Just like thinking, just even like hearing that just makes me want to like doomer spiral out, bro. Like, God, that fucking sucks.
1993, we saw a movie called Falling Down with Michael Douglas. It was a movie about a divorced and depressed, average, middle-aged man named William Foster, who just finally snapped. The philosopher Carl Jung may have described it as his call to individuation, a drive to live authentically, abandoning the fake persona that you present to the world in favor of who you really are underneath it all. In other words, you live according to your core values without concern for the approval of others.
Jordan
Foster
Peterson
was laid off from his job, sort of thrown away after years of work like a worthless piece of trash. He got out of his car in the middle of LA traffic and just walked away from it. Done. His call to individuation involved just completely ceasing to put up with anyone else's bullshit.
Pardon me, but that's bullshit.
He just sort of stopped caring about civility and started telling people what he really thought, with no censor.
So I'm starting to see where exactly DarkMatter is going with this, because guess who that describes to a fucking goddamn actual T? Trump supporters, right? And it was in the same video that I mentioned before, I'll probably like stick it in the description, is Channel 100 Evie, right? Or something. Her name is Evie, that's all I remember, okay? Her name is fucking Evie, right? And one of the things she was talking about and one of the main reasons why a lot of Trump supporters, because I'm just gonna like, I guess like sort of like make a very bold prediction, but DarkMatter's probably going to talk about Trump, if I were to take a guess, right? And the sort of like victimhood narrative complex that Trump supporters, generally speaking, have and operate with. The thing specifically with a lot of Trump supporters, and that is pretty much precisely the attitude that they had right around 2016, right? A lot of them said, fuck it, we don't give a shit, we're going to live our sort of like authentic, mostly racist selves, right? Because Donald Trump was the sort of main vessel, I suppose. We can go with vessel. The main vessel that was like expressing the sort of sentiments that these people had. A lot of it because of how they just did not like the fact that President Obama was, black and was president for 8 years, right? That's definitely a big part of it, right? A lot of it is because these people felt very much so emasculated by the fact that there was a black president, right? That's part of it. A lot of it was because of all the factory jobs being shipped overseas. That's also a part of it, although I don't... if it was like a particularly massive factor, that's different. That's definitely a question. I think it's a little bit of both, right? Part of it is the racism. Part of it is also because of the emasculation that these people felt, because from President Obama being president for 8 years. A lot of it is because of I want to mostly say and just like focus more on like material analysis here and just say it's probably the biggest factor in particular was more than likely because of the fact that a lot of these Midwestern factory towns, they lost all their factories. Pretty much the vast majority of them lost their fucking jobs, and also the vast majority of these people also felt very much so emasculated for the fact that it was probably a black man for example, who took away their jobs, right? He promised hope and fucking change, right? The black guy, Barack Obama in this particular instance, he promised all of this hope and fucking change. And what did we get? It's more of the fucking same. More and more jobs being fucking shipped overseas, and a lot of these people internalized that and basically decided to project that outward in a sort of like, well, racist manner. And the guy who was able to sort of seize upon that was, well, none other than, well, a big Trump himself. That's me, folks. I was able to seize upon people's racist sentimentalities in order to be able to get to the presidency.
Which, as you may imagine, did not go over so well with others. And with each new altercation he got into, by sheer luck, he'd end up with progressively more dangerous weaponry to facilitate his will. Starting out with a bat and a knife, and ending up with firearms and eventually even a rocket launcher. Inevitably, he killed people.
Get that shit?
It was kind of like fantasy fulfillment, the things you think about doing to assholes you encounter but never actually dare to do because you don't want to ruin your life. But what if you think your life is already ruined? What if you have
nothing to
left
lose?
to lose? What's to stop you?
Yeah. Now you're gonna die wearing that stupid little hat. How does it feel?
I remember...
Dude, this is such an accurate description of how a lot of these nihilistic fucking shooters have, like, God, what's the name? Robin Westman, nihilist, right? I'm not sure if they were a fucking Trump supporter. I mean, there was recently another kid that took their own lives because of 764, like, sort of like cult-like indoctrinations. But who are the other ones that are like so ridiculously desperate in terms of like school shootings? Wasn't there like a recent shooting done by some trans Nick Fuentes fan, I think? I mean, we could say the same thing about Tyler Robinson, the individual who allegedly assassinated Charlie Kirk. That was definitely another instance of just a highly, highly nihilistic, well, not Midwestern kid, but I guess, like, okay, I'm going to have a take here. I'm going to have a take. I think we may be seeing the new era of sort of like the quote-unquote Obama to Trump voter that has been activated because of racism and losing factory jobs. But it's going to be, I think, a little different, where instead of the main driver being like feeling emasculated because of racism, because of the black president taking away your jobs after promising hope and change, besides the fact that you just felt like kind of generally racist due to the fact that the country that was mostly meant to be quote-unquote a white Christian country that's being led by white Christian men. Instead of all of that, I think it's going to take the form potentially of more like definitely it's going to skew a lot younger for sure, because the thing that I'm describing here is mostly with people who skewed a lot older for sure. Like I would say like Gen Xers, definitely boomers, but Gen Xers and boomers absolutely, that were living in all of these like dead factory towns and rural towns, of course. But I think this is something that's going to be skewing rather younger, and I think it's probably going to lead to a lot more sort of like neo-Nazi sort of esque shootings, right? Because there is a lot more instances of fucking anti-Semitism. I think it's probably going to be a lot more populist. It's going to be a lot more sort of conspiratorial. I think it's going to be very, very much so conspiratorial. This like new sort of wave of the sort of quote-unquote Obama to Trump voter, where they just feel like these people will have absolutely nothing left to lose and are going to commit like more and more sort of like depraved acts of terror. Like I think we've covered this video before, but there was an attempt by a Trump supporter who was very young and also tried to go ahead and kill Donald Trump while at Mar-a-Lago, right? And this is something that's going to be happening, I think, way, way more often. I think it's going to be driven by a lot of nihilism. It's going to be driven by the fact that a lot of people just feel like there's just nothing left for them. So they're just going to, I don't know, go like a bat out of hell in order to, and just, well, I guess for like lack of a better term, just go ahead and basically go out in a quote-unquote blaze of glory in order to be able to just, I think, like, just try to take out as many people as possible, or try to take out someone important, because I do think there's probably going to be a lot more attempted assassinations of political pundits, probably even presidents. We've been seeing that specifically with the Charlie Kirk assassination. That has certainly been opened up, and the multiple attempts on Trump's life as well. That it is something that has definitely been opened up to, for sure. And it's probably going to get worse. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there's going to be, like, terror plots uncovered by, like, the FBI being conducted. They're probably already being uncovered constantly. We just don't know about it. More like terror plots that are being uncovered that are going to be led against, like, certain politicians or something because of, like, the sort of, like, deeply nihilistic culture and time that we find ourselves under, right? Does it kind of make sense what I'm saying here? Basically, like, the fact that the material conditions have just not been addressed for so long is going to lead to general sort of instabilities, which is why, like, people are broadly speaking saying, like, dog, if we don't, like, address the stratification of wealth that currently exists in the United States of America, it's going to turn into a national security problem.
At the time that we both liked...
Oh, and just to, like, wrap up that little point there, that was, okay, now maybe not really a little point that I was saying there, but the FBI, I believe themselves, have said that the biggest threat to, internal threat to the United States of America are who? Well, domestic terror threats by the right wing.
The movie. So, about 6 months later, when we went to Blockbuster to rent a movie, I noticed that Falling Down had become available to rent. When I suggested getting it, my dad adamantly refused, which surprised me, because he seemed to like the movie when we saw it in the theater. No, not that one, he said, reminding me of my reaction as a little kid when he picked out a horror movie. Like he was genuinely scared to watch it. And my dad wasn't usually talkative. He didn't volunteer explanations. So I wondered why, and I nagged him about it. Why? Why can't we get it? I want to watch it. Eventually, he answered me, and I never forgot his explanation, even though it was 33 years ago. You know what he told me?
Damn.
He said he was afraid of how much he felt inspired by it. That made sense to me. My dad had a tendency for violence, so he allowed his rational self to preempt his darker side so that he would not be tempted to do the things he saw in that movie, which realistically would just destroy his life, the lives of others, and severely affect my life as his son. So even though I wanted to see the movie again, I quickly let it go. If he had given me any other explanation, I probably would have argued, but I did not argue against that one because I didn't want to lose my dad. So I didn't lose him. He got older and stopped getting into altercations. He calmed down and seemed to be at peace before he finally did die, much later, of cancer. I once heard a sentiment that...
Well, I guess that's good. Well, not the cancer. That you know, press have to pay respects, but the calming down and the altercations, right? Because, like, let's be honest here, that shit that's just not, it's just not happening anymore, right? Like, I think we can all acknowledge that. I mean, especially online, a lot more people are more adamant and rather aggressive in terms of trying to defend their sort of positions, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? We live in a rather polarized time, and I've talked about this sort of concept before, and this, I think, more overall sort of comes back to the death of subjectivity. Haha, Daho mentioning the death of subjectivity again. Who would have thought? Whoa, crazy. The sort of problem that I think we are, I guess, finding ourselves with, I guess for like lack of a better term, is the fact that people, broadly speaking, and this is very, very much so the byproduct of social fucking media, a lot of people are more so always sort of like ready to get into altercations with people, ready to just get into fights with people, because that's broadly speaking rewarded throughout like algorithms and whatnot. Given the fact that critical thinking is also or I would say dead within the United States of America, or given also the fact that generally speaking, people are just not like, I was going to say wholeheartedly incapable, but I don't think incapable is the correct sort of way of putting this, but completely and utterly uninterested in being able to engage critically with one another anymore, makes it such that, well, people are more sort of like prepared and not prepared, that's not right, more adamant and more aggressive and more wanting of, I guess, wanting to get into like fights with their sort of like fellow American, or to get into altercations with people that they've never met before. Like, people are more likely to be rather like vitriolic and I guess ridiculous about, well, the fact that shit's just rough out there. No one's really willing to want to learn about another person's sort of like problems, or spend a moment in their sort of shoes, because again, everyone's like ridiculously desperate and poor, and it's making it such that, oh, people are going to act out on their sort of like, well, ridiculous, like not ridiculous, but act out in their like desperate throes of trying to, well, get along in order to just be able to survive. I hope, like, okay, it's a little rambly what I'm saying here. It's a little like, I was going to say ridiculous. That's not ridiculous. It's a little rambly what I'm mostly saying here, but I hope like what I'm saying is makes a bit of sense. People who, because we live in a very like socially stratified moment, economically speaking, of course, where people are just desperate. People are desperate for some form of relief, anything, right? There was this call, and here's a really, really good example of this, but there was this call on C-SPAN of this 65-year-old woman. It's very, very sad. I might go over the video one day. But this woman on C-SPAN was basically sort of talking about how she basically has nothing in terms of like food stamps, right? Because the Republican Party have done everything possible to take away the welfare benefits that she used to fucking have, right? The Republicans have made it rather clear that they just hate the working class, and they hate you specifically, and they want you to suffer. Period. End of story. That's not ridiculous. That's not silly. That's just a fact. It is true. The Republican Party does not care about the working class and prefer the working class if the working class were to fucking suffer, right? Like, that's not ridiculous to fucking say. Yeah, like you're saying, Boy Meets Mini, people are getting fucking needled and dimed right now. It's sad. It's not good. Like, it's just sad. It's terrible. It makes you, I feel bad. You feel bad. We all fucking feel bad about it, right? Like, obviously. But, like, people have been getting into sort of positions and places in their lives where there has been no relief for the latter part of about, what, I think like we can say about like 50 years or something, right? Like, wages have stagnated, more and more wealth has been concentrated into the hands of fewer and fewer people, and people are fucking desperate, right? Because everyone can see that everything is getting ridiculously worse, and it's making it such that people are not willing to critically engage or critically think anymore, and are not willing to sort of like fit in another person's shoes. Because, like, why would you? You're desperate, and you just want to look out for yourself. You're number one, right? You're numero uno. You need to look out for yourself in order to be able to survive for yourself and your fucking family, right? That's what you care most about. And a lot of it is also because of, well, education also dying in the United States of America, which is also contributing to this problem of people not wanting to fit in another person's shoes, not willing to want to understand their sort of perspectives, right? Not willing to sort of like get along with people and are more likely to just scapegoat others. For what purpose exactly? Well, because of the fact that they are in economically dire straits and no one is able to sort of like participate in the real economy anymore. Like, it's pretty much fucking dead at this point. Everything is financial fucking speculation. Everything is fucking dog shit and terrible. And people are like shocked Pikachu facing that everyone is like so ridiculously desperate to find some form of reprieve or relief. That doesn't, I'm not really surprised by that whatsoever. Like, it just makes sense to me. Like, 1000 fucking percent that people are just so desperate. And it's only going to get worse. Like, Trump's obviously not going to do anything about it. The Democrats are not going to do anything about it. All these motherfuckers are basically doing right now is essentially saying, like, well, it's time for the Palantir takeover to inevitably happen within the United States of America, and we just need to make sure that we have our own position secure in the hierarchy to make sure that, well, we don't get completely, I don't know, shunned away from Palantir, like, because politicians are incredibly self-interested. They're not going to fucking do anything about this, and the situation's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Oh, yes, I forgot, like, the woman on food stamps. Basically, like, Republicans have cut food stamps to the degree where she just can't feed herself anymore. She can't do it. She's a 65-year-old woman. She can't work. She's disabled. She can't drive. And the nearest grocery store is like 15 miles away from her. She can't walk there. She's a 65-year-old woman who's disabled and is blind. Like, she can't fucking do that. She would need some help. She needs food stamps. And she can't fucking work. Like, she can't pull herself by her bootstraps anymore. And this is the ridiculously desperate time where people are, broadly speaking, more and more just, well, not, like, coming at anything from the lens of, oh, wow, that's a really, really desperate situation that you find yourselves under. You know, how about you, like some people will just say, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just, like, do better. It's like, well, you can't. That's not always the optimal solution. That's not always going to fucking work every single time. And people are only just going to get more and more desperate, and it's going to result in some, well, really, really bad outcomes.
It kind of stuck with me, and it goes like this. You grow up wanting to be the hero. You grow old understanding the villain. You die too powerless to be the hero and too apathetic to be the villain. That describes my dad, and I have a suspicion that it also describes a lot of us. I think it means that we're very idealistic when we're young, so it's easy to imagine being a hero with a strict moral code, saving others. But as you get older and gain more experience with the way the world really operates, others are seen as more of a problem, so you have less of a desire to save them. You become more realistic, disillusioned, cynical, and can start to empathize with the villain and their motives. It's a lot more.
That's such a good description right there, I think, of, like, a lot of these, like, conservative boomers. That's so fucking good, dude. I've done that for 12 years in a corporate career. Even with promotion into a senior role, the finances are stagnant and you're just keeping up with inflation. It's bad, man. Like, I've talked about this concept before, but the current sort of, like, paradigm that we find ourselves under, it's unsustainable. You can't sustain this. Like, it's not possible. Like, the billionaire wealth was never gonna fucking trickle down to us. That was a bunch of hooey. That was a bunch of bullshit. And people are just getting fucking desperate, and I don't blame them for getting desperate.
Difficult to save a bunch of lives than it is to pick up a gun and take a bunch of lives. And so, when you're old, you have neither the power to save people nor the inspiration to condemn them. Most of us will never be a hero or a villain. Those are lofty concepts, usually only reserved for literature, movies, and games. What most of us will do, however, is root for either the hero or the villain. That's important because what's special about us common folk is that we ultimately hold the keys to the power, and we get to decide who can use those keys. And what I've seen more and more as I've gotten older is a greater love for the villain. What I'm starting to see is an entire society of William Fosters. So many people feeling used and thrown away, left to contend with a world that doesn't give a shit about them. So why should they give a shit about the world? Everything is becoming more expensive. Food, housing, medicine, transportation, entertainment, etc. Just to live is so expensive now.
True.
Relationships are getting harder to find because we're becoming so isolated and antisocial, so people aren't having families with no house, no wealth.
And I mean, like, I've also talked about this concept before. What's essentially being used to replace that oh, like AI fucking companions. That's like the current solution that these billionaire fucking psychotic freaks have basically come up with to try to essentially replace human social interaction. That's with like fucking robots. Like when I say that billionaires are like fundamentally anti-fucking human, like this is what I mean.
And no family, it's getting to the point where a lot of people are close to having nothing left, and so they have nothing left to lose. What happens next? What happens is that they become vulnerable to the first person who successfully takes advantage of the situation to sell them a solution, and that solution doesn't even need to work. It just needs to make people believe that it will work. And if it can give them an outlet for their anger and vengeance, then that solution will become all the more attractive. If the 2030s...
This perfectly fucking describes Trump supporters to a fucking T. That's literally them, right? So ridiculously desperate. I mean, the sort of like individuals that I've also been describing, relatively well, you know, and that like take I was having earlier, like young people are so ridiculously desperate to the point that like nihilism has taken root. And I've talked about this stuff before with basically like being able to have an average life being completely fucking impossible. It makes it such that people are going to sort of have the idea like, what is the fucking point of any of this? Nihilism is going to take root, right? And that's pretty much what was always been intended from a lot of these like billionaire sociopathic fucking dipshits. The reason why they want nihilism to sort of take root within people should be fairly fucking obvious. It makes it such that people are just going to be apathetic, not want to engage with the system that sort of is, well, the main thing that's basically fucking them over right now.
Look anything like the 1930s, which is entirely possible. Then we know what comes next.
Yep.
We know how people react to collapse.
Listen, there's already an effective fucking second Gilded Age, right? It's been described, broadly speaking, as we are living through the second fucking Gilded Age. And we all know what happened after the fucking after the first Gilded Age. The Great Depression and the rise of the Nazis.
What I fear now is that we live in a world without the same foresight and self-awareness my dad had that allowed him to preempt his darker side. As we enter the stage in our lives in which we understand the villain, what I see now is again, this is the thing I've been describing earlier. This is the byproduct of having like the death of subjectivity. People not being, broadly speaking, actively engaging their critical thinking faculties because of the death of education, and also because of the fact that people are just wholeheartedly incapable of understanding another person's perspective on particular issues. And this is like what DarkMatter is essentially alluding to here is 1000% accurate, and it's only going to get worse, dude. Like, I don't want to sound like a nihilist myself. I don't think I'm a nihilist, right? But these positions that we find ourselves in, this is not sustainable, man. Like, something is eventually going to give. And the question is, well, the what exactly? Is it going to be the economy first? Is it going to be the state first? I have no idea. But what I do know is that the current sort of like trajectory that we find ourselves under is, it ain't good, people. Lack of self-control. People gladly leaning into that darker side rather than having the wisdom my dad did to avoid inspiring it. There's a proclivity for violence boiling just under the surface of our society, and we're choosing the villain. You can see it in our media, you can see it in our politics. In so many cases, we find the villain to be the far more interesting character. When the villain is on the screen, we're more engaged. We're more excited to see prequels and sequels about the villain. We want to read about the villain. We like video games that let us be as bad as we want to be. These days, we're more likely to relate to the villain than to the hero. What does that say about us? This is not judgment. I enjoy the same things you do, but why? Because when the world becomes a harsher place, it becomes more difficult to resist cynicism, more difficult to see the good in others. And if you're not good, then nobody cares if you end up in the path of the villain's wrath. Nobody cares when those who promote...
Listen, it's like Warhammer, right? If everyone's a fucking villain, who the fuck cares, right? Like, exactly, this is exactly like the fucking Imperium of Man. right? If everyone's a fucking villain, if everyone's a corrupt shithead, if everyone's just completely close-minded and doesn't give a fuck about the actions of certain people, who cares? It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah, the bar is gone. The social fabric is not going to be able to function as it once used to. Everything just inevitably sort of deteriorates and disappears away. Because what's the point? Like, what is exactly the point? Yeah, exactly. Everything becomes, everyone's a fucking edge runner, right, in Cyberpunk. That's a good point, Smitty.
Cruelty, receive cruelty. We elect the worst people imaginable. We elevate people who would be best suited as Bond villains. And when I look at videos of Hitler's speeches with his voice translated into English by AI, I see nothing but praise in the comments section. Look at any one of those speeches and you'll find thousands upon thousands of comments gushing over how great Hitler was. Fake bot accounts? Possibly. Certainly
Possible.
not all of them.
I don't
But
think
what
it's
is
all
not
of them,
fake
though.
is the absence of the contrary. They say that he makes a lot of sense, that his words were so true and perfectly describe our reality today. What's very disconcerting is that there are always a lot of comments from people who say that they changed their mind about him once they were able to actually listen to his speeches. That when they were growing up, they always thought he was just a crazy, angry German guy, and that they felt school lied to them. But now they see...
Again, this is the same thing I've talked about before. The death of critical thinking and education within the United States of America. America has not been very effective at being able to teach anti-Nazism within its sort of educational system. And that's a lot of it is on purpose. And the reason for that is because if America were to properly engage in anti-Nazi rhetoric, it would have to sort of deal with some rather uncomfortable truths. A lot of what Hitler did was inspired specifically from the United States of America. Jim Crow, a lot of those sort of systems from Jim Crow, Hitler also implemented within the Third Reich, right? A lot of the inspirations for Hitler's policies, a lot of that came from fucking America. That is the fucking problem. It goes up against the Protestant power establishment. That's true, Boy Meets Mini. But not only that, but this is also the byproduct of the United Daughters of the fucking Confederacy and the failures of Reconstruction, right? Racial integration within America made it such that something like this can fucking fester and sort of explode in the sort of way that it does now. And America, fundamentally speaking, never willing to ever engage with the sort of problems, let's just say, of its incredibly racist Jim Crow slavery past, has made it such that it became, people fawning over the worst of history, the worst villains on the fucking planet, and is making it such that all of these like neo-Nazi freaks are able to sort of populate and sort of, let's just say, find rapport, I guess for lack of a better term, within broader sort of society, right? Just as, DarkMatter was saying himself. What essentially happens when there is like no more guardrails and like a lot of this becomes normalized and it's all okay? People prefer to just take the side of the villain while you have this.
light, and they see that Hitler was right all along. They say that we fought for the wrong side. It deeply disturbs me.
It's bad.
To watch them be manipulated in my time by a man who manipulated the people of his time.
That has surprised me,
Not that many
Alex.
years ago, if you called Hitler a bad person, you'd be accused of virtue signaling. It would be obvious to everyone. Calling Hitler bad is easy because he obviously was.
Mm-hmm.
But now, people will argue with you about it. It's a form of...
I think this is also something that I've mentioned myself as well, right? To say that Hitler is bad and that causing a fucking argument is genuinely fucking insane. That should never be the fucking case. Hitler is bad because of all of the actions and policies that he did throughout the Holocaust, throughout World War II, are just bad. The basis for why he did it are bad. Period. End of story. There's no argument to be had here. There is no discussion to be had here. They are bad. Period. End of story. Whether you like it or not. The basis for as to why it was bad should be fairly obvious. But again, the reason why people are sort of becoming more, I guess for lack of a better term, sympathetic to the positions of the Nazis in the 1930s is because of the fact that America fundamentally failed in terms of anti-Nazi education, because they never actually really gave a shit about that, and also racial fucking integration after slavery. That is why America, as has been said before by many other lefties in the past, fundamentally, deeply flawed, racist society.
Of fake populism. They relate to the villain because the villain knows how to pretend to relate to them, to the commoner, to we the people. When he could pretend to be one of us, pretend to have our best interests at heart, then we the people will give him the power he needs to be the villain. And that's what happened with Hitler. The Nazis were failures until they gained popularity under the Great Depression.
This is true.
It was then, during that time of hardship, that Hitler's complaint.
Even then, I'm going to be, like, quite honest. Like, he was even a failure in power. The Nazis were incredibly fucking incompetent. They were constantly high off of crystal meth, like, all the time. They were constantly doing drugs. Very, very much so incompetent in terms of a lot of their policies. They had no idea what they were fucking doing, but they were still, again, successful in implementing their ridiculous policies and prescriptions and positions. Why? Because they had leeway and forgiveness to be able to do that.
Complaints and promises ensnared the people. When he was allowed to take power, he installed loyalists, made everything worse, and destroyed Europe.
Yep.
Now, white nationalists worship Hitler, even though nobody has killed more white people than Hitler did. No one man destroyed Europe to the degree that Hitler did. Yet, bizarrely, it doesn't matter to them that the very thing Hitler warned about is the thing he ended up doing himself. They were just as obsessed with white birth rates back then as they are now. But what did he end up doing? He sent millions of Germans into the meat grinder. And when his time came, the coward took his own life to escape accountability. He refused to do for his people what so many of his people did for him.
There was a really good video talking about the failures of the Nuremberg trials by Jacob Geller. I'll probably also stick that in the description below, because it really talks about how there was just like not the accountability that people tried to take for the Nazis was not very effective, right? Like, yeah, they ended up killing a lot of the Nazis, but people within the sort of German Reich, broadly speaking, were not really sort of taught, I guess for lack of a better term, did not really see the trials as being an effective message for as to why what the Nazis did were bad, right? And a lot of it is part of it is because of the fact that no one really, like, there was already like some sort of like structures put in place to talk about like, well, we have like some provisions to talk about like the problems of not society, but like the sort of like consequences of what Hitler did, because there are rules to war. There's always been rules to war, but like what Hitler did in particular was quite egregious in comparison. We have like no idea sort of how to be able to properly engage with this, so we kind of have to make some stuff up as we go, which gave a lot of the Nazis a lot of leeway to be able to like wax poetically and shift blame and not take any accountability for anything, and just, broadly speaking, lie to the prosecutions.
He refused to fight when the fight landed at his doorstep, and he also refused to surrender and testify on behalf of those who supported him. Not that his reasons were just. He accused others of stabbing him in the back, but ultimately he stabbed his own nation in the back. He could only pretend to be a man of his convictions when he sought power and had power. But you can learn a lot about someone's true nature by how they behave in defeat. He proved what he was in the end and died in disgrace. Yet despite that, his poisonous words live on and inspire new villainy with which we must contend.
Trump.
They ignore what he actually did. because that's how manipulative his words always were. The white nationalists won't care how many white people you kill, as long as you blame the Jews and the black people and the brown people. It's the most delicious.
I'm really glad that DarkMatter is saying this, because there's a reason why he showed footage of January 6th. It is rather analogous to the sort of like shit that we find ourselves under right now. But generally speaking, when it comes to a lot of these, I don't know, weirdos, sure. For a lot of like racist white people, they don't really care if it's a couple of white people that also get harmed by their terrible policies, because white people also get harmed by Trump's terrible policies, by terrible conservative policies. But if it's black and brown people that get disproportionately harmed more so by those policies, then they're willing to make exceptions.
Poison. Whatever you do can be forgiven as long as you hurt their perceived enemy, as long as you express
okay,
the right
he just said it as well.
in the correct direction. Then you can get away with anything in their eyes.
If you can hate the
murder
scapegoat
people in the streets, no matter their color, as long as you do so in the name of hurting Jews, black people, brown people, leftists, LGBT people, disabled people, whomever they hate or see as inferior. Hitler now has admirers amongst even groups he would have deported or killed.
Hi, Myron.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
That fucking shit was so fucking like cartoonishly stupid, with like fucking clavicular and all that fucking bullshit, dude. God, that shit was so dumb, bro.
Yes, I do. One of them, and I'm tired of pretending he's not. You're a little bit more than a far-right Republican. Hey, what can I say? I think you say I'm a fascist. Yeah, I am.
Hitler seems to take root in those whose thinking is shaped by memes, sort of easy-to-understand quips that often promote stereotypes. They practically have meme-based personalities at this point. They allow others to do all their thinking for them. Allow me to read you a passage from Mein Kampf. Quote, "The receptive powers of the masses are very restricted, and their understanding is feeble. Such being the case, all effective propaganda must be confined to a few bare essentials, and those must be expressed in stereotyped formulas. These slogans should be persistently repeated until the very last individual has come to grasp the idea that has been put forth."
Yeah, what he's essentially saying there is, keep it simple, stupid. Most of the masses are fucking dumbass lemmings, and they will just believe anything that you say to them, right? It's the idea of, you know, the big lie that Hitler also said, right? The idea that if you keep feeding a bunch of people smaller and smaller and smaller lies, eventually it'll make it such that the pill is more easy to swallow. That the bigger lies are more easily sort of like understood. And it's the same thing with with every fucking conservative pundit. It's the same thing with all of these like white nationalist dipshits. It's the same with the current like flavor of neo-Nazis as well, right? They will keep telling small lies over and over and over again, right? And eventually they'll try to sell you the really big lies, right? The conspiracy theories that they have about Jewish people, all of the conspiracy theories that they have about leftists, the conspiracy theories that they have about like their esoteric fucking beliefs. But you've been believing all of the smaller lies. It's making the pill, well, generally speaking, much, much easier to swallow. And then you're going to be more likely to believe in this stuff. That's why I've said, like, this shit, it is effectively just a big fucking cult. It is a cult at the end of the day. And it's just, I've mentioned this before, but history has a funny way of repeating itself. It doesn't tend to repeat itself very much, but it does like to rhyme. And we are currently finding ourselves in a position where history is currently rhyming quite a bit.
Long before Richard Dawkins coined the term meme, Hitler already understood the concept and their usefulness as tools of manipulation. And he didn't mince words about it. He literally called your understanding feeble. That's what he really thought of you. One of the main things that gave rise to this love of the villain, which includes Hitler's renewed popularity, is shallow contrarianism combined with crippling cynicism. I accidentally benefited from that when I started my YouTube channel for no other reason than the timing of it, the year 2008, the beginning of the Great Recession. I was always an atheist, passionate in my feelings about religion. My experience in life until YouTube was as the cynical contrarian, the minority, the outsider. When I found YouTube, however, suddenly I wasn't alone. I never expected any sort of popularity because I was expecting the same resistance I received in the offline world, a world in which being religious was the obvious and the only way to be.
This is the broader consequence right here of the satanic panic right here, right? A lot of people, broadly speaking, became Reddit atheists because of the, Bush administration basically justifying the invasion of Iraq through a very much holy lens as a holy war, but also satanic panic bullshit as well. That's also another big reason for as to why a lot of these more Reddit atheist types eventually ended up being like big fans of Gamergate, and eventually ended up being sort of, incredibly far right in of themselves.
That is not what I found here. My channel experienced rapid, unexpected growth because I looked like a cynical contrarian. And though that may have been fashionable, I was always quite sincere. But some people were here arguing against religion because that is what was considered edgy and cool back then. That's not why I did it, but very temporarily, I was aligned with what was considered edgy and cool and experienced popularity because of that. But what is considered edgy and cool always shifts. That's its nature. What's cool today becomes dorky tomorrow. What's edgy today becomes cringe tomorrow. People who are slaves to that cycle, by definition, can't have any principles other than the temporary ones decided by others.
This is such a good fucking goddamn point. And I've talked about this concept before with a lot of these lumpen proletariat types, like the MAGA for Mamdani people, right? These people are not like reliable, principled voting constituencies. They're not. These people fundamentally only care about one thing and one thing only, and that's a vibe, a feeling that they are a sort of assuaging, having sort of be satisfied by being a part of a certain team, because it's cool to be a part of this team. Like, oh, look at this guy. I think this guy's like really cool because he says these things that I agree with and that I like, generally speaking, right? These people, I've called them lemmings before, but they are lemmings. They are people being driven off of a cliff because they're just believing and sort of like associating with particular like thoughts and beliefs that would not be overall a good thing for them to, and probably like dangerous for them to, generally speaking, sort of agree with. And this like perfectly describes Trump supporters to a fucking T. A lot of these people will just go along to get along, and because they feel like they're winning in the culture war, they feel like they are accomplishing something that is supposed to be beneficial to their sort of political movement, when in reality that could be, anything else could be even further from the fucking case.
Who weren't a part of that early online atheist movement for sincere reasons, saw it as a fad that was falling out of fashion. So they moved on. They based their beliefs on not wanting to be cringe, and atheism became cringe because it stopped being the brave, contrarian position. They wanted to find the next forbidden thing, the next thing they weren't allowed to say, the next thing that caused shock and outrage, the next thing that upset people. They weren't sincere, they just wanted to be rebels. The cause didn't really matter to them, as long as it was taboo.
And this goes back to the death of subjectivity and the death of critical thinking, right? I've talked about this before, but right-wingers, fundamentally speaking, believe in absolutely nothing. They have to believe in nothing in order to be able to justify their fucking worldviews. Again, I'm going to bring up the fucking Jean-Paul Sartre quote. This pretty much perfectly encapsulates the moment that we find ourselves in. I'm surprised that DarkMatter has not sort of referred to this individual yet. Maybe he'll get to them eventually, but here, I'll just mention him now. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. You can substitute anti-Semites for fascists, for the current conservatives that we find in ourselves. You could shift them for MAGA. It doesn't fucking matter. The point inherently that's being raised here by Jean-Paul Sartre still applies to all of these sort of groups. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. Perfect, accurate description for all of these far-right fucking freaks. None of these people care about anything. It doesn't matter. The only reason why a lot of these far-right dipshits believe in the things that they believe in is because it's a fun little plaything. It's a fun little, like, group that they can sort of, like, get into. It's a fun little thing that they have gotten into and think is, like, cool because, like, all their friends are saying, like, look at this, like, rebellious, really cool thing. When in reality, it's some of the most cringe shit on the fucking planet. And then there's being sold a particular lie in order to sort of, like, I don't know, have like a little song and dance with a bunch of their friends online. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. But this is exactly the thing that the anti-Semites take advantage of. And it's easy, right? A lot of people are just, because of their ridiculous desperation, the economic throes they find themselves in, it makes it such that a lot of these sort of pills these people get fed to are way, way easier to fucking swallow. Especially all the anti-Semitic shit. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. This is a perfect description for the moment that we find ourselves in, and why I keep saying you should never treat conservatives seriously. That's exactly what they want. You don't treat them seriously. You just make fun of them. You bully them. You call them fucking stupid, idiot fucking morons. You call them losers. And you do anything possible in order to socially ostracize them from polite society, because they don't believe in the social contract. They do not believe in society. They do not believe in what is the sort of general good for humanity.
The outrage was their drug of choice, and they became addicted. The way this manifests today is people trying to outdo each other in a race to the bottom. It's fundamentally childlike resistance for the sake of resistance. They enjoy using the most bigoted slurs imaginable, that up until very recently were rarely uttered, except for perhaps in the most graphic and disturbing dark corners of the internet. Now you see those slurs everywhere, sometimes even uttered by our politicians and other popular figures. Anytime someone tries to be positive or fight for something that's good, they are accused of virtue signaling by those who now favor vice signaling.
Ugh.
These are children
Has
with
been
adult
gold.
bodies, and society told them no for the briefest of moments. So now they're doing the perfect opposite, because that's how children rebel. There's no real principle behind it other than perception. That's what matters most to them, because this was always about what is fashionable. This was always about the current fad. And when those people took power, it became what I call an influencertocracy. You can see this in how the government runs its social media now, how it
That's
leverages influencers, and how it tries to gain control of the narrative as quickly as possible.
Not to mention, like, we've all seen, like, posts by, like, the fucking DHS accounts and shit like that, right? All the, like, Nazi sort of virtue signaling that they do all the time through a lot of the posts that they have. They do this consistently because they have a bunch of, like, griper little weirdos who run those accounts in particular, right? Like, they do this as a way to signal to people, like, yeah, we're in position. It's us. We're the ones in power. Blah, 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 blah. But there's a problem with having a quote-unquote, I guess, influencer-only sort of, well, I was going to say avenue, but a sort of like influencer-only sort of, like, administration, right? Since, like, because what DarkMatter is saying here is correct, broadly speaking. It is a sort of strength that these people have, but it's also one of their greatest weaknesses at the same time. A lot of these, like, influencer types and these other fucking sniveling dipshits, a lot of them want to only chase fads. He's correct when he says this, right? Very, very much so correct. Right on the fucking money. But that's also a weakness for them at the same time. Because their inner desire to only want to chase what is the biggest sort of fad out there makes it such that they are not ever able to sort of be able to want to take power for themselves, because, well, that's not necessarily going to be as fashionable. You actually have to be held to account for a lot of the positions and beliefs and sort of things that are happening throughout the government. And it makes it such that it is, well, it's a lot of work, And a lot of these people are not interested in that work. A lot of the Trump administration officials, all they generally speaking do is just like go on social media and talk about like whatever like epic thing they just did before. Like, it is a strength for them, but it's also one of their fucking greatest weaknesses.
If it means lying about things that were captured on video from 3 or 4 different angles. Make the lie big and repeat it often. That concept was described by Hitler himself in Mein Kampf. Now, bizarrely, the contrarians and the rebels are the power.
Oh yeah, I did get the concept of the big lie completely wrong. No, it's the opposite way around. You make such a giant lie that you make it such that it is more palatable for the smaller things to pass through, to make it such that the bigger pill is easier to swallow. That's what it is.
No longer do they fight the machine, they are the machine. Like all those who have hatred, they became the thing they hate. This is what a senior FBI executive said about what happened behind the scenes right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. He said, quote, "Whenever there's a critical incident, one of the first things that happens is a conference call with everybody, all the executives. Most of the field offices dial in. The director rarely speaks because someone with situational awareness is leading the call. They'll say, here's what happened, here's what we know, here's what we need. But we get on, and it's just Cash berating the special agent in charge in Salt Lake. He's super emotional, and then it turns surreal. Cash and Bongino start talking about their Twitter strategy, and Cash is
What? Oh my... Their Twitter strategy is what they focus on first and foremost. That's the exact point that I was talking about before. Right there. These people only care about one thing and one thing only, and that is their podcast numbers. Their influencers first. Administrators second. That is fucking incredible, dude. Jesus Christ. And I'm just not surprised by this whatsoever. Like, yeah, of course. All these motherfuckers fundamentally cared about, first and foremost, was their fucking influencer strategy in order to be able to get more fucking goddamn clicks. Why? Like, I'm so unsurprised by that. That is... Oh, man, dude. Jesus Christ. That's so fucking cringe, man.
It's like, I'm gonna tweet this. Salt Lake, you tweet that. Dan, you come in with this. Then I'll come back with this. They're literally scripting out their social media, not talking about how we're going to respond, or resources, or the situation. He's screaming that he wants to put stuff out, but it's not even vetted yet. It's not even accurate. When I was an agent, I did hundreds of these cases. The initial information that comes in is always wrong. There's too much coming in, and it takes time to vet. And it was obvious that Cash can't understand that, and doesn't want to understand that. Everyone on the call is like, this guy is completely out of control. On another call, he said, when a crisis happens, the only thing you need to do is call me. The most important thing in any crisis is controlling the narrative. I was like, no, we actually have to do some work here.
No, that's like, yeah, that's fucking ridiculous, right? But then again, Kash Patel is a fucking fascist. Period. End of story. They only care about controlling the narrative because they have to make sure that, they control the mind of the people that they have, like, basically enslaved to them. Because this shit is a fucking slave mentality, right? That a lot of these, like, Trump supporters, broadly speaking, fucking engaging in. Oh yeah, he is a perfect fucking corrupt Indian cop. Like, 1000% there, boy Bitsmany. Like, you've told me about some of the shit that goes on in India. It is incredibly corrupt. And Kash Patel is no fucking different.
We're gonna have to investigate to solve this.
Guys, we need to aura farm on Twitter first.
The alleged killer of Charlie Kirk got away, and the FBI did not catch him. He turned himself in.
That's true.
After the suspect was taken into custody, Kash Patel immediately started compromising their ability to successfully prosecute him by abandoning standard necessary law enforcement impartiality and proudly displaying his bias, showing that he can't really be trusted on that case, which the alleged killer's lawyers will absolutely use in his
defense.
Now, I would say that the narrative...
I believe that's exactly what happened with Tyler Robinson's fucking lawyers. That was, like, the first thing that they said. It's like, I mean, literally look at the FBI director. He's fucking lying here. These are, like, now deleted tweets by him saying that, we already know. We just need to focus on, like, a social media narrative and controlling the fucking narrative and on all of this. And it's just like, dog, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, we don't even know for sure if it was him. Like, that guy turned himself in, and like, was it even him? I don't trust Kash Patel as far as I can fucking throw, which is not very far. Like, I don't trust him whatsoever. Kash Patel has already displayed that he is wholeheartedly compromised, and he's just not interested in any of this whatsoever. He is a compromised fucking candidate. He can't be fucking trusted.
More important to him than potentially compromising their ability to convict Kirk's alleged murderer. But it could also be explained by sheer ignorance, as Cash was chosen not because he's competent, but because he's loyal. Either way, you see how the narrative is paramount in this influencertocracy that's running our government right now. From the leaders of the Department of Homeland Security, to the Department of War, to the FBI, and to the president himself. The truth matters to none of them. What matters to them, far more than the truth, is influence.
Yep.
So if the truth needs to be sacrificed...
This is the exact same shit I've also said myself. These people only want to get social media clicks. They don't care about governance. The point of doing all of this was never for fucking governance. Like, what are you, fucking stupid? What are you, fucking cringe? No, it was never about governance. These people only care about one thing and one thing only. And that's just aura farming on Twitter. That's literally it. They care about aura farming. They care about looking good in terms of the masses. They care about looking good in terms of the media, because it's what Trump cares about, looking good in front of the media. They don't care about any of this stuff. They don't give a fucking shit. But these guys are all former podcasters and fucking influencers. So that's what they're going to hyper-specifically focus on instead.
On the altar of influence, then that is exactly what they will do. And they will not hesitate, no matter how brazen the lie. The frantic attempt to control the narrative recently happened, yet again. On January 19th, I published a video titled At War with Ourselves, and it talked about the killing of Renee Good.
I'm probably also going to take a look at that video at some point as well.
In the thumbnail, I wrote, "This will happen again and again." And in the video, I talked about how it will happen again and again.
It did. It did happen again. It happened to Alex Peretti, Keith Porter Jr., and countless other people. This is already fucking happening. It's going to keep happening over and over and over again. Oh no, no, no.
And when the highest echelons of the government immediately declare that you have immunity after you kill someone before there's even an investigation, it sends a message. And that message was received loud and clear, because it only took 5 days before it happened again. Just like I said it would.
Alex
A
Peretti.
genuinely good person named Alex Peretti, a man with no criminal record, an ICU nurse for veterans, and cancer researcher, was 2 miles away from his home, where he started to film ICE agents from across the street with about 10 other people.
Which you
all
can under the
perfectly
Constitution.
legal. ICE agents went out of their way to cross the street to accost the people filming. And the ICE agents immediately got physically violent for no reason other than to bully people. And the only thing Alex Peretti did was try to help people. A woman was sprayed in the face and very violently pushed to the ground for no reason by an absolutely out of control, violent, belligerent ICE agent. Alex Peretti stepped between them and tried to help the woman to her feet. His last words were, "Are you okay?" He was relentlessly sprayed with chemicals. He turned his back to the agent and was sprayed even more. A half-dozen agents very violently attacked him. He did not resist their beating. He did not punch, he did not kick, he did not bite or spit or anything. What he did do was curl into the fetal position on the frozen ground as a half-dozen agents of the federal government beat him and repeatedly bashed him in the face with a cane.
They were fucking pistol whipping him, for fuck's sake. Like, this is like, there's been leaked memos. We all know this about, like, ICE agents having to be taught, because these people are barely sentient, I'll be honest. Like, these quote unquote ICE agents, barely sentient. They're barely fucking human beings. Like, I'll be quite honest. They are not even taught the basics of constitutional sort of like law, how the Constitution fucking works, the amendments that they have to comply with as agents of the state. They don't even know about any of that stuff, because they are just not interested about knowing about any of that stuff. Because again, these people are all a bunch of fucking freaks. They're crazy, they are lunatics, they are insane. You can't have rapport with these people. I've talked about this concept before, but you cannot have rapport with people at ICE because they are not interested in having fucking any rapport whatsoever.
Can of pepper spray. It reminded me of the Rodney King beating. During this beating, his shirt lifted up revealing a holstered and legally carried pistol registered to him. An agent took his firearm out of the holster and began to walk away with it. After he took the pistol, another agent fired the first shot into Alex's back, and then they fired a dozen more times, ensuring his death. The Lincoln Project described it thusly: "The worst of us are killing the best of us." Immediately after his murder, the federal government, including Trump and all the loyalists he installed into positions of law enforcement, told brazen lies about what was captured on video from at least...
Yep, they called him a domestic terrorist. That was like the first thing from Kristi Noem. Same with Stephen Miller. A blatant lie. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. Just a lie. Just whatever. Who cares? They can just lie. It doesn't matter. All these like lemmings will believe them anyways. Doesn't matter. All of these people, right, were also saying stuff like he went there with the express purpose of trying to kill ICE agents. Lies. You can do like open carry of a pistol in Minnesota. He had a license for that. Nothing was wrong there. Everything was completely above board. These people just don't care about the rule of law. They do not care about society. They don't care about civil liberties. They are against these concepts fundamentally as a first order principle, which is why you can't treat any of them seriously. You cannot treat them as like honest interlocutors, because these people, they just simply put, do not care. They don't give a shit. Period. End of story. And the point of the conservatives that are doing this is that they're doing this for the express purpose of just causing more and more suffering for those they see as, well, their main opponents.
3 different angles. They called him a terrorist. They said he was there to massacre ICE agents. They said he violently attacked them. None of that is true.
It's nonsense.
None of it. And if no legal action is taken against any of those agents, then it will continue to be open season on all Americans. It doesn't matter if you're at a protest or not. It was the ICE agents who went out of their way to attack people who were not interfering with them. They've already said they can enter your home without a warrant. If they kill you or violate your rights, it doesn't matter what you stand for or what you did. They will find a way to justify it after the fact. Even if it means lying about something that's on video. That's our new reality. Make the lie big and repeat it often. And just imagine how much easier it gets for them if it's not caught on video. You won't stand a chance. That goes for all.
Oh, that's like, again, that's also a point that I've brought up before. It makes it way harder for these people to be able to get away with a lot of the things they're saying. There's always going to be people that just inherently believe anything that comes out of the Trump administration's mouth. The lemmings, they don't care. Like, these people are nothing more than just cattle. Like, let's be honest here. To be just herded around as if they are, like, complete just morons and troglodytes, which they are. They're just stupid. They don't care. These people will just believe literally anything. They will just believe literally anything that comes out of those they see superior, because these people are just submissives to power. They love to pretend that they are the constant underdog who are challenging the status quo and are, I don't know, like taking it to the enemies of the free world or whatever, when in reality anything could be further from the fucking truth. These people are all just demons.
For all of us, no matter your politics, we are now at the point where they can claim you're resisting. If you are simply violently attacked by law enforcement, it doesn't matter if you go totally limp or curl into a little ball, they will still say,
yep,
you're
they don't
resisting.
care.
In an interview on January 26th, the Minneapolis police chief, Brian O'Hara, said, quote, "The Minneapolis Police Department went the entire year last year recovering about 900 guns from the street, arresting hundreds and hundreds of violent offenders, and we did not shoot anyone. ICE shows up, and they kill 2 people in Minneapolis within 5 days. That's not law and order. That's what happens when you remove law and order from the people assigned to uphold it."
Yep. I've said this before, but like conservatives don't, like the conservatives love to constantly soy out and pretend that they are the quote unquote law and order sort of like presidency and law and order fucking party, when anything could be like the exact opposite. These people don't care about law and order. For them, it's all about subjugation. That's all that they care about. It's all about like trying to like aura farm on like fucking Twitter and trying to like make themselves look based in front of their like sycophantic little fucking weirdos. These people don't believe in anything. They don't care about anything. The only thing that is consistent with a lot of these people, let's just say, is How can we cause the most suffering to those that we perceive to be our fucking political enemies? Period. End of story. The suffering is the point when it comes to conservatives.
Rights attorney was arrested for protesting at a church. She was actually invited into the church, but when she spoke up and said things the congregation did not want to hear, like pointing out their hypocrisy for not heeding the teachings of Jesus, she was arrested. It was a non-violent protest. She said her piece and then left. The government referred to it not only as an attack, an invasion, an assault, and an insurrection, but also as a riot, all of which is blatantly false. As the whole thing was recorded on video, you can watch it.
Some members of the congregation agreed with her, though. Like, it doesn't matter with these people. Like, they don't care, Boy Meets Minnie, right? Like, we can all acknowledge this. These people don't care. They believe in nothing. They are all just fucking grifters. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can, like, jingle some fucking keys and say, like, oh, yeah, that's actually, like, not keys. That's, like, a secret satanic plot in order to, like, eat my internal organs. And they'll just fucking believe it. They don't really care. These people are nothing but sheep.
But that didn't stop them from lying about it. When she showed strength in the face of tyranny, the White House digitally altered her face to make it look like she was crying when she was arrested. Why? Because it didn't look like she was hurting enough. And their social media campaign is rooted in showcasing that they are causing their political enemies to feel maximum misery. It's not about crying or justice. She's an attorney and knows where the boundaries are. She did not break the law. But that didn't matter, because it's really about the fantasy fulfillment of inflicting cruelty upon one's enemies. If you show strength...
Again, fascism. That's what it looks like. This is exactly it. This is all the fucking fascist bullshit. Period. End of story. Like, so long as the people that they have as perceived enemies suffer more and more in comparison to themselves, they don't care. They'll take a little bit of pain in order to have those they perceive as the main problems in the society suffer significantly more. Like, these people, they're just demons, dude. What else can you really say besides a lot of these conservatives that we find right now? They're just demons. They don't care.
In the face of that, they will lie and make fake imagery of you, because for them, it's more important to control the narrative. What's most important for the villain is not justice. It's to cause misery and suffering. And when the government lies to the public to achieve those ends, they lose what little trust they had left and totally cease to be a credible source. Motives like that inevitably give rise to a cycle that spirals in on itself, because nobody cares when misfortune befalls the bloodthirsty. So when you engage in cruelty, you dehumanize yourself. You put the target on yourself. You give others permission to be cruel toward you.
This is such a fucking fantastic point that's being raised here, because people have been consistently more and more talking about on social media how they just want to see Donald Trump and all of his fucking lackeys just die. They just want them to die. And again, who can really blame them for fucking thinking those things? Is it bad that they think those things? Yeah, it is bad that they think those things. But here's the thing. This is exactly what these people have wanted. Conservatives, this is what you've wanted with your fucking ridiculous and boisterous just lies, with your ridiculous and boisterous just lies and inner desires to want to have violence against those that you perceive to be your fucking political enemies. You are essentially creating a permission structure where unlimited cruelty is not only going to be against the people that you think deserve to have that cruelty, but also against people like yourself as well. You are essentially creating the barbarism that you so much pretend to fear, because you people just want to do everything possible to cause as much pain, misery, and suffering for those that you perceive to be your fucking political enemies. There's also people who triple Trump and now regret it, and why they still apologize for almost everything the admin does. What do you mean by that? Like, people who triple Trump and now regret it, while still apologize for almost everything. Do they say sorry for what the administration does? Are you saying like they feel bad, or are you saying that they are defending it? I'm not exactly sure what you're saying there, Boy Meets Minnie.
And have a clean conscience while doing it, because you reap what you sow, and you're forced to play by your own rules. You lose your innocence when you support cruelty. For example,
First of all, when these people come out and go, Tim's a
Hi,
bootlicker for
Tim.
defending us, I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them.
Yeah, this was so fucking revealing here by Tim Pool. It's like, you're not the fucking boot, little bro. You're not a part of the big fucking club, okay? Like, when the cruelty is all fucking done, like, and all of the power is concentrated in the hands of the very fucking few that you are defending here, unironically, so-called, I don't know, quote-unquote populist Tim Pool over here, you're going to be immediately fucking discarded because your usefulness is now gone. You are nothing more than a tool for these people who basically just want to do anything possible to gain power for themselves.
I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground. I ain't licking anybody. I'm clapping for these people that I said, please go out and enforce the law. And anybody else who's cheering for it, who voted for it too, we're all wearing the boots. You're the one crying.
This is where it becomes a question of will. Can you now crush the protests? What is involved in this? People gotta die. Actually, people do have to die. I don't know how people don't expect this. How is this not reasonable? All of this is justified. You know, what level of force do you think is acceptable? We need something more radical and more extreme and more intense than anybody thinks is reasonable right now. That is what needs to happen. ICE has not gone far enough. Trump and the National Guard have not gone far enough. What's the answer to Trumpism? We need to build upon Trumpism. We need to deepen it. We need to expand it. We need to make it more radical. We need somebody in 2028 that makes Donald Trump look like a fucking joke. That's the only solution. That's what makes me worried. When I see people crying about a couple of dead left-wing protesters, you are simply not prepared for what has to happen next. There needs to be a lot more ICE. There needs to be a lot more of that sort of thing before we take our country back.
Yep, they just want fucking dictatorship. That's what they want. Like, it's perfectly fucking revealing there. That pretty much just encapsulates everything that I've been fucking saying. These people just want power for themselves, right? That's always been the point of this. They don't care about, like, the affect of, like liberal fucking democracy. They hate fucking liberal democracy. They don't care about civil liberties. They don't care about the Constitution. They have never cared about any of these things. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. For these people, it's always been about a power play for them, first and foremost. They don't care about any of this stuff, which is why you can't show any mercy to these people. They don't deserve fucking mercy. You beat them down, metaphorically speaking, of course, and you make it such that they can't gain power for themselves ever again, because you give these people an inch, they will take a mile.
When you support violence against others, you naturally invite violence upon yourself. Action, reaction. That's one of the reasons I don't support corporal or capital punishment. I don't support violence, especially by the state, which has proven to be untrustworthy. I do not support violence against Tim Pool or Nick Fuentes. Possibly some sort of non-violent legal consequence for incitement, sure. But if something violent happened to them, videos like the ones I just showed you will spread like wildfire across the internet, effectively deterring a lot of sympathy that they might have had otherwise. People won't see that something bad happened to human beings. They'll see that something bad happened to the I voted for the boot guy and the I want more deaths guy. So they'll laugh and they'll point, and when they go to sleep that night...
This is the exact same thing, by the way, that happened to fucking Charlie Kirk. A lot of people did not feel much sympathy at all for Charlie Kirk. And again, it more and more plays into the law of the jungle stuff that the conservative, like, because this is exactly what they fucking wanted. This is the world, I've said this before, but this is the world that conservatives have wanted. This is exactly what they have fucking wanted. This is exactly what they have been working for the past 50 fucking goddamn years. And now they have it. And some of them might not be particularly comfortable with where it's going. So they want to make it more radical. They want to make it more fucking extreme because they feel like it's not going far enough. Because guess what? If they actually do cross over and try to actually do go that far, they might not like the fucking consequences for what happens when it inevitably boomerangs back against them.
It will be with a very clean conscience. There's a right-wing meme that goes around using the image of Patrick Bateman, the serial killer from the movie American Psycho, and beneath his smiling face it says, quote, "How I wake up knowing my enemies are ontologically evil and there is no act against them which is wrong." See, they recognize the phenomenon to which I'm referring, the dehumanization of those who advocate cruelty. Rather than any sort of real evidence, though, they just use the word evil as an excuse. But rather than learn a valuable lesson from that, the meme instead expresses justification for it. It doesn't understand the cycle of violence it perpetuates. That justification for yourself also becomes justification for your enemies. In a sense, you are creating the argument that will be used against yourself. This is the...
And I will admit, I've used that exact same fucking argument. I have. I don't think that these people deserve sympathy or fucking mercy. I understand. Like, I don't disagree with what DarkMatter is saying. You should be willing to see past that and see people for their human side. But here's the thing. Right-wingers are just not interested in that. It gets to the fucking point where it's just like, at this point, it's about survival. At this point, for a lot of minority communities, it's about survival. Yes, sympathy for them is permission for them to do what they want. You can't show mercy to these people. You have to fucking ostracize them. They are just not interested in participating in the social contract. They are not. I've had all these like dumbass fucking right-wingers who have come into my fucking comments and they will cry and bitch and moan and complain when I use basically all of the exact same tactics that these motherfuckers like to use on everybody else. And they just cry about it. It's like, oh, it doesn't feel so good when I use it against you. Now do you? You don't like it very much either. This should be a learning moment for these people, but they refuse. They will always refuse because, again, they're not interested in fucking learning. For them, it is all about the cruelty. That is all that they care about. These people are you cannot live in you can't live in a sort of like a passionate society with these people. They don't care. The abhorrence is the point. These people, like I've said before, are just demons.
Cycle that is created when you elevate and idolize the villain. He doesn't solve your problems, he makes them worse. He doesn't create peace, he creates calamity and strife. And by the time you realize it, it's already too late. You handed them the keys to power, and they gladly took them. Now you live by their rules. Germans thought Hitler was going to make Germany great again, but instead, he destroyed it. His admirers would say that it was the other countries that attacked Germany, and that Germany was just acting out of self-defense.
Ridiculous, obviously.
Ridiculous, let's hypothetically say that it's true. In that case, he still wasn't a good enough leader to protect Germany, nor save Germany. That's necessarily true, given what happened, regardless of who you think started that fight. Why did he try to aggressively expand and seize territory? Why did he send troops to march across the borders of other countries? He pretended to care about peace throughout his rise to power, but once he was in power, it became about war and domination. He lied to his people, just as he's lying to you in those old, preserved speeches.
Whoa, wow, it's almost the exact same thing as what Trump is doing right now. Guys, I think we might be seeing a lot of parallels. Who would have thought?
Aggressiveness was his downfall. And now some people just want to repeat that same mistake. And it's being spurred on because of people who think they're being contrarians. And contrarianism is so cool, isn't it?
True.
Well, contrarianism stops being cool the moment you do it just to be cool. And when it's the actual power. Poison might as well be the thing that became fashionable. As we have people like podcasters angrily stomping and proclaiming that they are the boot, to the laughter and cheers of their audience, as people with huge followings are calling for more killings right after people have already been killed. I want to leave you with a quote that used to perplex people. But given what is happening now, given the context of what I have shown you and told you in this video, I don't think it will perplex you at all. It's a quote from a survivor of Auschwitz. This is that quote. "It was not Hitler or Himmler who abducted me, beat me, and shot my family. It was the shoemaker, the milkman, the neighbor, who received a uniform and then believed they were the master race." There was a relatively recent time when we did not understand how regular people, our own neighbors, could be capable of that. Well, I bet you're starting to see it now, aren't you?
It's true.
You need people like me.
Listen, and again, I've mentioned before where a lot of this stuff is generally speaking born out, and it's because of material conditions. Again, whoa, the Marxist is saying the fucking goddamn bit about material conditions. This is all fundamentally born out of the fact that people are so ridiculously desperate for some form of a change to happen, something to actually genuinely improve in their lives. So then there's a fucking con man in this case, a billionaire pedophilic con man who will get to them and say, like, well, I have all the solutions to all the problems, folks. Let me tell you, I have so many solutions to so many problems, and I'll be able to fix everything, when that is obviously not the fucking case. And now we have the current problem that we have right now, where all of these avaricious, pedophilic fucking dipshits are currently in power right now, and all of their apparatchiks and little fucking lackeys are justifying the abhorrence that we currently find ourselves under right now. Oh, but yeah, I couldn't have really said any of this better myself. DarkMatter pretty much just hit it perfectly, right? And a lot of it is because of, the failings of the current economic system that we find ourselves under. Similar to what happened with Hitler and the fucking Nazis. The deteriorating material conditions that we currently find ourselves under have made it such that a lot of these dumbass fucking contrarian dipshits can just act as performatively cruel as possible to those that they perceive as their enemies, and, you know, pretend to be the boot and be a part of a massive club where they have all the power for themselves, and they can just justify anything in terms of the sheer abhorrence that's going on. All the wars that are going on while they're going after the others. So who gives a shit? All of the ICE arrests that are currently going on. Well, they're going after the other who has been the main sort of dude who took away my job and took away my ability to participate within the American dream. So therefore, it is all actually good. And this is justified. And just like how it was back during the 1930s in Nazi fucking Germany, the same thing is happening yet again. History likes to fucking repeat. It doesn't often repeat itself, but it likes to fucking rhyme. And we are currently finding ourselves in a moment where history is fucking rhyming. But yeah, I don't think there's like really much else to say besides a lot of the things when people look back in history at this moment that we currently find ourselves under. People will be reminded, not very fondly, of what was going on, but people are just going to take a look back at this and think, oh, what the fuck were we doing? This is fucking insane. Why did we do any of this shit? And no one will remember any of these motherfuckers who have, generally speaking, lied in order to get into the positions they find themselves currently under, and justifying all of the ridiculous abhorrence to just lie for the express purpose of what exactly? In order to just aura farm on fucking Twitter. Because that's what it all is with a lot of these people. They just do it for fucking social media clicks. Which honestly, I think is more fundamentally fucking pathetic than why the Nazis ended up fucking taking power. Because at the very least, back then there wasn't any social media for those charlatans to make any use of. But yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say besides Trump, his gaggle of freaks have made it such that, well, I guess that some flavor of fucking fascism, or perhaps even like Nazism, has made a return within the United States of America. And people will look back on this moment and not remember it very fondly.